call the meeting to order. We would like to inform all board member attendees that this meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion, and will rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mrs. Barber.
Here.
Mr. Carey.
Here.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Here.
Mr. Rivas.
Present.
Mrs. Witt.
Here.
Mrs. Junk and Mr. Lawler are absent.
So with 5 members present, we have a quorum. So we will move to consideration of moving consent agenda items to new business. Is there any?
Yes.
Yes, which one?
11. I-11, please.
I-11. So we'll make that J5. Anything else? Nope. Okay, so we will go to the approval of the agenda, and it's going to be as amended, as there is going to be no executive session tonight. So is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0, so we'll move on to superintendent salutes.
We don't have any tonight, but we're about to salute a number of our young artists in J1 in a second, but there are no salutes.
Fantastic. All right, so we'll move on to public comments. Are there any public comments tonight? Nope, so we'll go to the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains the following action items: the approval of Treasurer's Report September 2019, approval of minutes of the September 30th, 2019 regular meeting, approval of resignations and employment of staff, approval of destruction of audio recordings from closed session meetings from March 2018, approval of 2020-2021 budget calendar, approval of telephone provider renewal, and the following informational items: the student suspension data report, the enrollment report September 30th, 2019, the Freedom of Information Act report, and the field trip notification, as well as the employee position report. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? And a second? And a roll call.
Mr. Carey. Mrs. Pavlak.
Aye.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Motion carries 5-0. We'll move on to J1, the Board of Education Art Purchase Awards.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for coming out. It's always an honor every October to recognize our wonderful staff members, our art teachers, and then also our students who you're about to meet in a second and get to see their artwork. So without any further ado, what I'll remind you is when your students come up, please feel free to come up and take a picture. So when we call your student, you'll come up here, either you'll grab your artwork or you'll stand in front of your artwork. We'll give you a certificate, and then your teacher will brag about you a little bit. And if you want as a student, you do have an opportunity to share something. Most students don't, or a little shy and embarrassed, but don't worry about that. So a couple other things. Just as a reminder, this artwork, as it is selected, for the next 2 years, it will reside over in the district office. So for 2 years, we will take this. It'll either stay in my office for 1 year, which is awesome because I'm not real big on decorating for one, and then number two, it's a great way to showcase our students. When anybody comes by the office, I just share them the artwork. Then the other year, it's in the hallway, and then in the third year, it goes back to their school of origin. So they will get a chance to see it back, or you will get a chance to see it back in their buildings. But for the next 2 years, it's shown off in the district office, which is a great compliment. Before we start, though, we'd like all of our art teachers, if you'd stand for a second, so we can say thank you to you before you come up. Thank you for all of your work. Thank you. As you all know, and you're about to see on display here, Kaneland is renowned for our arts, through art education, music, the arts in general, and athletics and activities. So it's a great joy for us to be able to celebrate this portion of our school experience, and we know that art is very important for a comprehensive EC through 12 background. So I will bring up Mrs. Gilkey first, and Mrs. Gilkey, if you come up, we can share some of our honors of our students and brag about them.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm Heidi Gilkey, and I'm from John Stewart Elementary, and I'm going to start by just saying thank you again to the board for doing this every year. I know this has been going on for at least 15 years, I believe. So we really appreciate that we're still honoring our students in this way. And I'm going to start with our second place winner from last year, and that's Amelia Jones. So Amelia, you want to come on up, honey? Okay, so in first grade, we were studying birds, as you can see, and learning about cutting properly and creating more of a collage type art piece. And Amelia really worked with her colors extensively and her details to create this magnificent piece. I'm going to hold it up really high so you can see the details of these beautiful birds. Wow. Congratulations, Amelia. Oh, this goes, yes. There we go. Congratulations.
This will stay here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's hard because they always want to take it with them.
You're welcome, Amelia. All right, and our first grade, she was first grade. Our first place winner from last year is Bryn Hum. Bryn, come on up. To be able to have her again this year. You want to hold this right here, honey? Look at that great purple frame that they put it in too. That's my favorite color, purple. This is Bryn, and I've been honored to have her. I actually want to tell you that when she was in first grade, so exciting, she did get in the stage show as well for her self-portrait. So we have a magnificent artist here. Congratulations, Bryn. Last year we studied African cultural masks, and so we were working with metal tooling, and Bryn really hit the details. She added so many details that were perfect for what she was trying to create, and then adding her extras to the outside with the feathers. It's just a complete composition. I was completely impressed with everything that she did. Congratulations to Bryn. And now we'd like to invite Miss Kara Berth from Blackberry.
I'm Kara Berth, the art teacher at Blackberry, and I'm going to invite Elena up. She's our second place winner at Blackberry Creek. All right, so this year Elena is in fourth grade, but she created this piece when she was in third grade. One of our main focuses for this piece was to do some very close observational drawing. This is one that can be appreciated from far because of the color, but when you get close to this one, you can really see the detail and the amount of shading that she put into this artwork. It's almost like a hyper-realistic paintbrush on this abstract background. It turned out absolutely beautiful with the shading and the different colors and all of the splattering paint. It was kind of a fun and exciting process to go through. So congratulations, Elena. And our first place winner, Ansley Rue. Come on up. All right, so this is Ansley. She's currently in fifth grade, which is wonderful to have her yet again. She created this piece in fourth grade. It was the very first project we did in fourth grade, and she did a really phenomenal job with it. We were talking about how your hand is an important part of who you are and how all handprints are unique. And so for this piece, it was a handprint that then was, it had a really nice creative design on it, and then in the background of it, we incorporated quite a bit of writing with this piece. And so it's a personal statement about who they are as a person, as an individual, and as an artist. And this piece kind of, it's the words can't even say enough of what the words that she put on the page. I don't know how to say that, but like it's a phenomenal piece. It explains who she is as a person and has such a positive spin on it that I'm so proud that she created it, but then it will be able to be at our school, spreading kind of just a great, peaceful, creative atmosphere. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Berth. From McDowell now, Mrs. Skagowski. You're welcome.
All right, Angel. Come on up.
So this is Angel Sosa, and we were studying landscapes in third grade, winter landscapes, and there's tempera paint in there and tissue paper as well, and oil pastel. Angel's a very hardworking artist and just an all-around compassionate student. I love having him in my classes. Everything he does, he puts a lot of attention and detail into, which you can definitely see in this picture. I just think it's charming. I think he did a really wonderful job for something that took about a month to do. It was a lot, lots of little mini steps, collaging and then drawing the people and painting and all of that as well. So very, very excited to see what comes next from Angel this year, and I'm very proud of you. Congratulations. And then Carter. Okay.
Oh, I'll let you hold it first.
So this is Carter's piece from last year in 5th grade. And I think a lot of the adults in this room right now can appreciate how amazing it is that a 5th grader is able to create a picture so instantly recognizable as MLK Jr. This was done by grid drawing, so he took, and they get to choose the subject. So that's what he picked, and he gridded it all out on the printout and then created his own separate grid, which is a lot of measuring and drawing lines, and it's very painstaking the entire time. But he really stayed very focused and dedicated the entire time he was working on this. I have my 5th graders rate their projects at the end of the year from their favorite to their least favorite. And grid drawing draws a lot of very compassionate, people either hate it or they love it because you have to be very meticulous and very focused for many weeks. This took us about 6 weeks to do. And Carter has it in spades, and I'm so very proud of what he's been able to accomplish. It was just, even when he was working on it, I just loved it so much, and thank you to his parents for letting us have this in McDowell. So, congratulations.
And Mrs. Grigg from John Shields.
Corinne. This is Corinne Favor. She is currently in 4th grade, but created this artwork back in 3rd grade. And I just want to say Corinne is good at everything she does. So it is no surprise that she is an amazing artist. And in 3rd grade, we do a really big unit on color theory. And so this picture uses a lot of the things they learn about color. So for example, the bird, this cute little stacked birds, she created using tints and shades of the color blue, where you mix black to make the shades and white to make the tints. You can see her craftsmanship is on point. That's super huge, that I stress with all my students, and I don't even think she had to try really hard to do that. She's just that good. So she did a really amazing job, and I'm super proud of her, and I can't wait to see what she does in 4th grade. So congratulations.
It's right there, right?
Yeah, and then Olivia.
Just.
Would you like to hold it? Or stand next to it? Okay, so she's gonna hold it, it's big. So this is Olivia North. She's currently in 6th grade, so she made this back in 5th grade. And with this picture, I wanted to teach my 5th grade students how you can draw things from different perspectives. So not everything has to be drawn and looked at from the side, which is what you see pretty often in especially young children's artwork, is objects viewed from the side. So for example, the first hot air balloon is drawn from a sideways perspective. And then the second hot air balloon, I taught them how to draw something from looking underneath, because a hot air balloon is a 3-dimensional object, so it can be viewed in the round from all different perspectives. So then the second, like I said, the second hot air balloon is viewed from the bottom. And it was really fun hanging those up in the hallway without the sideways view balloon, and having staff and students go by and just be like, kind of staring and looking like, and then all of a sudden a light bulb goes off. Oh, it's a hot air balloon, and they finally see it. And then the second aspect of this artwork was trying to create that 3-dimensional look by using shading. So the oil pastels that we used, we did darker along the edges where the bumps on the hot air balloon were receding, and then the highlights in the center, those white areas, to show that those portions of the hot air balloon are coming out towards us and receiving the light. So as you can see, Olivia did an amazing job. I love her color choices. Oil pastel is not an easy material to use. It's very messy, it kind of gets all over the place, and she had some really good control over her materials. And so I hope you're enjoying middle school, and we really miss you at Shields. So congratulations.
Next is from Harder, Mr. Purnell. Come and brag about your students. Yeah.
First, I'd like to thank Kaneland. Last year was the first year we had digital graphics as a semester class. Digital graphics has always been a 9-week class, so we worked at the high school, and we had Mrs. Larson. And so last year we were able to actually share our units together. So what happens now, if you take digital graphics in 8th grade, you can then take a digital graphics 2 class in high school. So it's very similar to the Spanish class, so you get a little bit of a advanced, understanding of how that works. First person we're going to ask up is Gigi. Please stand up. You know where that's at. What Gigi created was our second project, actually, we did. This is after only about 4.5 weeks of class. You guys can't hear me?
Watch when we turn on
Oh,
TV, they
I was
can't.
I've never been known to be quiet.
People watching at home.
So Gigi did this after about 4.5 weeks. We started off with a flat landscape design, which she incorporated into the flat city, which we did second. One thing she did an awesome job coming in. I believe you came in for study hall sometimes. You came in for lunch. She worked on it. She went back and forth. She put in detail. If you have an opportunity to look at this, not only does she have the bricks in the building, but probably one little piece I like the most is this little tiny office box right here in the corner that's a little blue that really just makes it really stand out, the details. Again, this took about a good week and a half, 2 weeks you were working on it, and you can see an amazing job she did with this. So awesome job, Gigi. Proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Congrats.
And our next award winner is Brenna. This piece that Brenna worked on was after we've been working on Photoshop and Illustrator for a while. So basically, the best way of describing it, it's almost like a midterm. So she combined the two ideas she knew about Photoshop and Illustrator, And the beams you see in the background and some of the other pieces, the stars, and I think, no, some of the plans I think you found online. But she incorporated illustrated shapes, put into the background using Photoshop. She did a great job listening because I suggested, what else can you do with a piece? She went online, found a variety of different tutorials on your own. One was this dripping effect. And again, she found different things on her own without me teaching her, looked at it, and she moved on. And what happened was this combination of Illustrator and Photoshop, a surreal, I think you went with a fashion design type of theme. So it was more of a fashion model theme that she had that was very surreal. So awesome job. And I believe you said you're taking digital graphics too in the spring. So great job, Brenna. Great job. And I believe it's high school?
Yes. And just as, excuse me, a reminder, when we are done, if you would, you're welcome to stay for the meeting, but at least if you step out for a second, we want to get a group photo of all of our artists. Unfortunately, art does need to remain in here, so that way we can take it to the high school. So the students, if you'd gather right outside here, Mr. Atkins will, Mrs. Huber will take a picture of all the students with their gift cards. And just so that you also know that there are gift cards for each student along with the certificate, and each of the second place nominees and a recognition students get a $25 gift card and a $50 gift card to the winner. So students, make sure you don't give that to your parents. You keep that. You earned that, okay? You earned that.
Okay, Ashton Winkler's high school students are here today, so I'm going to brag about them anyway. So Ashton was in, this is in photography class, so she was actually in Mrs. Damish's class. Yes, second place. So this is Mrs. Damish's digital photography class. And it is a really awesome photo that has sort of an explosive element of like flame and fire, but also like darkness over here. So it is a really interesting composition, very well put together, and has a really good contrast. It's a really nice example of really strong photography. So we kept down, so she'll be getting this one. Okay. And then Jessica Cozier, this one is an example of some work we do in 2D1. 2D1 is a two-dimensional spatially drawing and painting, but it's beginning drawing and painting. So it's what we did was we looked at Legos in class and kind of had them put together, and we used two-point perspective to create the illusion of depth. And then we talked about really layering on colored pencil and getting different colors and mixing the colors onto the paper by layering different colors together. So they had to mix together. So it's another really nice example. We also talked about geometric shapes, but then the circles on the top, the little, what are those little Lego things on the top, the pegs, they make what's called an ellipse when it's like, this way it's round, and we talked about how it changes into an ellipse shape, and trying to record that is very challenging in art. So we do lots of things with cups and things like that. So this is another good example of 2D drawing. So.
Great, well, thank you. We'll make sure these students get these. Thank you. And just one more, if you don't mind, a round of applause for our staff, for our teachers. Thank you. I hope you noticed a little bit throughout the description of each of the artwork that they mentioned a little bit of science. There's a little bit of, obviously a lot of art, but there was some math, and there was communication that takes place, and there was some research that they did, and a little bit of independence. So in and of themselves, they're beautiful, but it's also neat to see that there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes to actually make that artwork. So thank you for that. And congratulations again to our students. I'd like to thank our board again for supporting this. And before the picture, I just want to close with congratulations to our students who did receive a certificate for this. So they technically have been paid for their work, so they are now professionals. Congratulations to our young professionals. And again, if you don't mind, if you please gather and get a team picture. And those of you who like to come back in for the remainder of the board meeting, you're welcome to. If not, we understand, and have a good evening. Thank you for coming.
Good, how are you? It's good to see you. She's a
That's awesome.
Awesome. Congratulations.
I think so too. Reindeer and Christmas trees and crazy lights and stuff. It's very cool.
And the age that they do this, isn't it?
Yeah, while they're doing it at such a young age. And I like the stories behind it. You know, the artwork in and of themselves are obviously awesome, but then the story of what they did and how they put it together and how quick for someone.
Yeah.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, because they'll feel rushed if they.
Yeah, I don't want to.
That's what we're still Double it? So moved.
Two times zero.
Oh, okay. Remember, the one's gonna have the bite out of it from
Yeah.
the one guy.
Oh, that's right. I forget why, but definitely should happen.
I texted him and I said, just going straight from work and being home for a few minutes and turning around and going to the meeting, it stinks because, I mean,
Yeah, now they're
I
living it.
have to do it.
Yeah.
I was just really, he does it all the time. I don't even think he does it all.
No, I do. I'm long enough to shower and just go.
Oh.
People might actually be awake when I get home tonight.
How about that?
Change the pace.
They will.
His wife and kids might even be home and they're awake tonight.
Unless because of the ribbing, they haven't changed the locks on the door. Wait, come on, this isn't funny, guys.
I'm always very PC better
Yeah.
Are you?
at the door.
They always meet you, right?
You can go ahead. Yeah, we can go ahead.
All right, so we'll move on to J2, approval of donations.
Dr. Fuchs?
Great, thank you. This first donation on agenda item J2 is from Roquette America, Inc., and they donated, I think it's quite a bit, of office furnishings that they no longer needed in their offices, but that we can use in some of our offices, and then also the computer labs. The person who kind of coordinated this is one of our Kaneland parents and worked with Dr. Mum to get it picked up, delivered, and we're working on getting it distributed. So again, we're thankful for the donation from Roquette America. We believe the value is somewhere between $500 and $1,000. $500 and $1,000. So,
Good. Any questions?
Yeah, just thank you.
All right, so
Yep, motion.
I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education accept the donation of office furniture valued between $500 and $1,000 from Roquette America, Inc. to be used in offices and computer labs in Kaneland schools.
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Pavlak?
Aye.
Mr. Rivas?
Aye.
Mrs. Sparber?
Aye.
Mrs. Witt?
Aye.
Mr. Carey?
Motion carries 5-0. We'll move to J3, discussion and approval of 2 new paraprofessional positions.
Yep, for J3, I'd ask Mr. Atkins if you would join us for the conversation at the microphone and kind of walk through the information from the memo and then any additional information that would be pertinent based on some further conversations that we've had district-wide.
Sure, thank you. As I've shared in other settings in front of the board, I do believe teaching is both an art and a science, and every fall, our administrators and our teachers blend those two things together to get a sense of our students and what they need. So as they do every year this fall, our teachers have examined the science of education. They've looked at test scores, they've looked at RTI data, special education loads, intensity of needs, class sizes, student ratios in terms of gender, all sorts of things that can have an impact on the dynamics of a classroom. They've also looked at the art of education by monitoring and observing our students, the combinations of kids' personalities, social and emotional learning needs, et cetera. And this year, different from some prior years, we have some pockets of need at some of our schools. And so in looking at all of those needs, the administration is requesting from the board permission to add 2 FTEs for paraprofessionals to support those needs at the elementary level. To share easily and simplistically, that comes out to about half a paraprofessional per building, but at this time, the administration has a plan to target that support to specific locations, so you may and do so dynamically. So you may have a building that does not have a paraprofessional support at this time at all, but another building might have more than a 0.5. So we're trying to look at the needs of our students, their needs right now today, and then also have a systemic approach to making sure that we can meet all of the needs of all of our students throughout the year.
Any questions?
Is it possible that these positions would sub for other paraprofessionals when they're not in, so that there could be somewhat of an offset every once in a while?
So the question is, can the paraprofessional sub for other paraprofessionals? Technically and contractually, any employee can sub for any other employee, but the purpose of these employees would be to supplement the existing staff, so the existing staff can work with the high-needs students and student populations and needs that we have identified. So what we're not doing is bringing in a brand-new employee who may or may not have worked in a school setting or in one of our buildings before to work with these students that we're bringing this support in for, but we're asking them to work with maybe another classroom so that an existing paraprofessional or teacher there can go and support our areas of need. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Perfect.
My understanding, we have 2 unfilled parapro positions as it is, and
We have several.
okay, and we want to add more. And how confident are you that we can fill these positions in a reasonable time frame?
Define reasonable time frame. We will fill them. You know, it
Well,
is.
I guess, is it a question of the market's just empty and there's no one to get? Are we not paying enough? Are we not advertising? What's
The simplest answer is that the economy is doing really well.
Okay.
Unemployment is at an all-time low. People are getting good jobs and keeping them. So people who may have typically applied for these kinds of positions are finding employment elsewhere. I think we can share a variety of examples with you where that we've come up against that. However, we are able to provide something to candidates that the private sector cannot, and that's the school environment, that's the hours, that's the working year versus the entirety of the year. I am confident we'll be able to fill the positions. Reasonable time frame, I'd like them filled yesterday. However,
Well, I know in the past we've given bonuses for bus drivers because we couldn't find something. Is that something that we need to explore, or do you think that you are able to do this in a reasonable time frame?
we've had some cursory conversations about that, Dr. Fuchs and Dr. Layden and I. However, that would require additional conversation both with the board and with our labor union to be able to do something like that. We're not quite there yet.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So how many jobs aren't filled?
We currently have 5 unfilled paraprofessional positions.
And
That'd be 5 or 7.
5. Well, that would be, if you approve these, that would make it 7, correct?
If these 2 go unfilled, that would then go up to 7.
We've been posting on Indeed, we've been networking. Filling paraprofessionals is a common concern across the state. We've been talking at our King County Human Resources Consortium about it. Every district is struggling in a similar capacity, but I am confident we'll be able to fill them. Just, we'll need some time to do it. I have to stop for a quick second and thank Mrs. Faber and Mrs. Bacallis at the high school and middle school where those existing positions are open. They have been beating the pavement pretty hard to find quality candidates. So.
Any other questions?
I got one, and it may have been Teresa's question, but I'll ask it in my flavor. So some paraprofessionals that we have are not less than 1. Can some of those do their other half, if you will, if it's a .5, to fill some of these?
Can you take some of your part-time and make them full-time?
I don't believe we have any part-time people but for our early childhood teachers, and they're part-time because we don't have early childhood on Fridays. So could we do that for Fridays with those people? We can have those conversations.
Just
Yeah.
give an idea.
No,
That's a good idea.
absolutely.
I don't know if that was your idea of
Absolutely.
your question, not Teresa. I didn't understand your question that well. but-
Similar, I think.
Yeah.
Similar
Similar,
vein.
okay.
Yeah.
Teresa's on a low word count today. Speech
you.
counts and the word counts.
Minimalist when it comes to words.
All right.
Thank you,
so-
Mr. Atkins.
Thank you. So I'd like to entertain a motion that the Kaneland Board of Education approve the addition of 2 new paraprofessional positions.
So moved.
In a second? I'll second that. Is there any more discussion? And a roll call.
Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt. Mr. Carey. And Mrs. Pavlik.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We'll move on to J4, approval of parent group donations.
Yep, before I share this, or before I turn it over to Dr. Fuchs to walk through the memo, just wanted to once again thank our community members, our PTO, PTN, PTA, parents of the amount of time and effort that they put in to meet, to fundraise, to supervise students and provide these opportunities. It's truly phenomenal. Each of the years that I've been here, this total has been over, I believe, over $100,000. So it's just great to see how much work they do and how much our community gives back to them. So we'll share a note of congratulations and appreciation from the board. But with that, I'll let Dr. Fuchs answer any other questions or share any additional details you'd like to.
Sure. I'll just mention that the cover sheet is the total. If you want to see more specifics, each of the memos that I received in various forms are behind the cover sheet. And so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, I too am grateful for the $100,000 and hours of work that these parents go through in order to donate to the schools.
Any questions?
Just an observation. I'm surprised, well, it seems like they're all very close to each other, except the middle school. So I assume the middle school is very active elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's the first step of elementary school, super involved, middle school, they take the first step back, and then at the high school, other than the performing arts boosters and the sports boosters, there really is not a PTA, PTO, PTN. So that's kind of that first step of transitioning out of the scene a little.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
It's time to start stepping back.
Yep, they do.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education accept the donations in the amount of $108,995.40 from the Kaneland parent organizations for the 2018-19 school year as presented.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Barber.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt. Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Mrs. Pavlik.
Aye.
And Mr. Rivas.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0, so we'll move on to J5, the Alice update.
The reason I asked to pull it was this is what, 2 years into the making or 3?
I think it's the beginning of the third, two
The third
full years
year,
and the
yeah.
beginning of the third
And
now.
it's a, in a sense, like a hot topic these days, so I wanted to hear it out loud, if you will. I mean, if you want to read through it, whatever. There were
Okay.
some things that I had some questions with, like, but anyway, I'll at that moment, I'll
Sure.
ask.
Julianne, I know a lot of, Dr. Fuchs, I know a lot of that came from the security task force. So if you want to share some of the highlights, where they're at, kind of walk through a little bit more of that memo in detail, then see if there's any additional questions.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I started on here at the at the elementary, but I'd like to start backward. Our high school and actually middle school as well, both started the same year of the implementation. It was an outcome of some training that Deputy Kaneland did, and then we sent 3 administrators to become ALICE certified trainers, which they are. And so the high school and the middle school immediately came back, trained their staff the first year, and then I believe the second year started integrating students into drills. At the end, or I guess middle of that second year in January, was when the law changed that said that we had to start having drills with students and police present. Prior to that, we had to have drills, but the drills did not need to involve the kids. It was interesting. It kind of evolved as well. And so at this point, the high school is very, I would consider them to be fully implemented. Each year, they review with the students on the first day what the process is, but at that point, they've had it because it's been there in middle school, been there in the high school. The new kids hear about it, they get it, they demonstrate, and they practice some of the skills through the drills. So both the middle school and the high school, at this point, there's not much to report because it's implemented. It's the way it is. At the elementary schools, they went a little bit slower at first because there wasn't a lot of good information about how to implement ALICE with elementary. But as other schools around the state continued to implement, there was a lot of discussion and a lot of ideas. That book came out, I'm Not Scared, I'm Prepared. And so the elementary schools now have also grasped onto the ALICE concept through the use of that book, as well as they're also required by law to do the drills with the kids. And so they had to do something and move forward, and they've done that. And so I would say within another year, they're fully implemented as well. All of the schools provide a lot of extra support in and around the drill time or the training time for both staff and students to make sure that staff fully understand what their role is, and students who may be struggling with just some of the concepts and some of the ideas or are unsure, we provide lots of support for those. I know that not only because our administrators talk about it, but also I see the various emails that go out saying, if you have any students that need additional support, please send them to, the location and the time and things like that. So those are all pretty much where we are with the philosophy and the implementation. A couple things that came out this year that are new that I do want to highlight because they're really good is that Chris Weiss, and we're going to celebrate them at the next meeting when all the administrators are here, but I'll give you a highlight tonight. Chris Weiss put together, I think it's a 4.5-minute video, and all of the schools are pushing that out to parents, and it just goes through a nice background of what ALICE is so that when the parents hear about it, they also can watch that video. It's not 30 minutes, it's just really succinct and well done. So kudos to Chris for taking the time to do that. The rest of the task force, the security task force, we are also in the process of creating other safety kinds of videos. What we're hoping to do is to create a video bank where parents could go on the website because we, as you may know, we don't have really good attendance at our safety night. And so we're looking for ways to get information into the hands of parents without asking them to come to the schools yet another night. So I hope throughout the year that we can share with you the various videos that are released. At this point, we've identified them, but we're in the process of creating them. Chris set the bar high, and so now it's up to the rest of us to do our jobs too. The second thing is Jake Countryman. He's the new principal at McDowell Elementary School, and his assistant principal, Courtney Ward. They created a Canvas course, or a course in Canvas on ALICE. Originally, they thought it would be for both parents and staff, but as they're revising it and updating it, it truly is just more for staff at this point. And so staff can go in and work through the module and the course in Canvas And then also, again, at the elementary level, feel more confident and comfortable with the Alice philosophy. Because it is slightly different when you're responsible for younger children rather than middle school and high school age children. So Pedro, I do hope that helps to give you the picture. Fox Valley Career Center, I just have one sentence on them. They're also, along with the high school, in full implementation and have done a variety of drills.
Yes, it does, and exactly, it did exactly what I was looking for. You talk about sharing with parents and different avenues, hence this. And that's exactly where I was going with that. So I'm glad to hear that, and obviously there's, I know there's been a lot of growth with it as well, as you shared with us. One particular area as far as questions, the questions areas you have questions for the week, the 24th or the 27th. Just interested if it was just students asking questions. What's the question date thing there for?
That was for teachers to ask questions about what they're expected to do prior to their drill.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So not only do they introduce it to the teachers, but they give them an opportunity to reflect, talk about it, think about it, and then ask questions.
Yeah, I thought it was parents asking questions, but it'll probably come later, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And then, in reference to the Canvas class module, what have you, now is that a required thing for our staff to watch, or do they do it on their own time? How does that work? At the end of the day, what I'm going for, are we gonna be asked to pay for them to watch this?
Great question. I don't believe that this is required at this time because it was so new. However, perhaps in the future, it may be required for new staff or something like that. Let me bring that question back to the task force to find out how it's going, how it was received, and what their intentions are. And in a future Alice update, I can report back, or I can put it in a Friday update. Our task force doesn't meet again until, I'm thinking November, late in November. So it'll be a little while before I get back to you.
It just seems like things like this always go there, so it's
Great question.
Gotta ask. And then, participation, everybody's in it, there's any resistance, that type of thing?
No, not with today's. Exactly. Yeah.
Hence, back to why I wanted to pull it out.
Yes.
Thank you.
You, somewhere along the way, someone sparked something. Is our new SRO Alice trained?
Yes.
And then Julianne, in August, before the school year starts, always have the first responder meeting. To what degree do the different municipalities, are they trained in Alice, or do they have the conversation with them so that they know what we're practicing here in the district?
They're all on board at this point because part of the law for the drill requires police to be present. So they have to be involved, and they're at our schools when we run those drills. It's required by law.
Yep. And they've done it, and they've,
Yep.
just as an FYI,
They're all on board at this
and they've done a
point.
great job working with us. and
The
asking
one
us
thing I would
questions.
say is that Alice is a brand. There are other flavors of drills and responses, such as run, hide, fight, and then other hybrid models. At this point, we've still stuck with the Alice philosophy. All of the philosophies are very similar, but because we've paid to have our 3 people trained, I've been in touch with the Alice Institute, and our plan is to continue with them because we've just got everybody on the same page. To change again doesn't seem practical. So we're going to stick with it at least for a couple more years.
And I would assume,
Whoops, I'm sorry?
I would assume as things are moving, as you're going forward, there will be changes that will get incorporated into it.
Absolutely, updates. You betcha. Every time we do a drill, we learn something. That's the purpose of those drills. And then we modify as needed so that the next time we run the drill, we can make sure that it works the way that we hope.
And there's almost always at least one piece of legislation in each session around school security, whether you can use door jams, you can't use door jams, whether, what kind of requirements or restrictions we have, and as we learn those, we'll share those also.
Yeah.
One last question. Fox Valley Career Center. I guess I wanted to see what that interaction was with the students that are coming in from the outside. Is it, they're in our building, so hence you gotta do this type of thing, or how does that work out?
Yeah, they did a similar training over there with them, and while they're probably back in their sending districts, they may practice Alice or something like that, but while they're here, we do work with them on Alice and what the expectations when they're here when they're here, either at the Career Center on the high school campus or over at Meredith.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Are some of the other schools actually using Alice also?
I don't know. Julianne, do you know
Yes.
when you meet with them?
Yep, definitely. We meet with the ROE once a month, the security people.
Yeah.
And there are a variety of schools that use Alice and a variety of schools that use Run, Hide, Fight, and then hybrid, but everybody's using something.
Okay. So the students, irregardless whether they're here or in their home schools, they kind of know what to do if something happens.
Yeah, it's the vocabulary that we try to make as similar as possible for
Okay.
that reason. Not only that, but substitute teachers that sub
At various
from building to
places.
building and district to district.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
Anything else? I think that was an informational item, so I think no action is required. So we'll move on to the superintendent report.
Yep, the first one, the Kaneland Foundation is scheduled to meet, or was scheduled to meet on the 15th. We've moved that meeting to October 30th to accommodate a guest speaker. If you'll recall, one of the conversations we had last year with the foundation was the 501c3 component of it, and that update. I know the board asked for a topic for future agenda. We do have information coming out about that later this fall. But we do have a guest speaker who was the former president of the National School Foundation Association. So she's going to be coming to the next meeting that was moved to the 30th. And I know President Sparber represents the board at the foundation meetings for this year. And so we'll have more conversation on that, how other districts have transitioned from district officials doing a lot of the work to a true 501c3, and can we do it? Should we do it? What would that transition look like? So she'll be able to provide some insights as well as some other research we've done with some other local foundations that are successful, so we can transition to that. So that'll be on October 30th. And then this Friday, as a reminder, is the annual CEO conference hosted by the Fox Valley Career Center. I know Dr. Burchell will talk a little bit more about that at the next meeting when they come, because that's part of one of the goals is to expand that out. And it's been great just to see, and he'll brag about it, the work that they do and the number of connections that are made, and our students that get jobs sometimes on that day, sometimes later on into the fall, and that has worked out well. But one of the things that they're doing this year, they're adding a component of the college officials from, I think it's Kishwaukee, Aurora, Wabansie, and ECC that are attending. So there'll be another component to talking about credits, what to do with some of those degrees. So if they want to be a welder, what else can they do for certification? So they are adding a college component to it, and what degree might, or certificate might go in conjunction well with any of the careers that they learn about while they're at the Fox Valley Career Center. Then the other thing, next Wednesday, October 23rd, we were supposed to have our Facilities Planning Committee meeting, but if you remember, we moved it up to September, or we moved it back to September so that we could talk about solar energy and have a recommendation from the Facilities Planning Committee. So there's not anything else at this time for the Facilities Planning Committee to talk about. Maybe in the fall, in the spring or winter, we'll have another meeting, but for now, that 23rd meeting is canceled because we moved it to September. And then the last thing, Mr. Rivas, I will get you the, now that CAC and FAC has met under the new administrative advisory role, Dr. Fuchs and I will get together, we'll get you those dates, so then you can send the dates out to the rest of the board, because I know that we assign board members to attend those. And so now that.
Still going to do that?
Oh, no, you're right, we don't, no, but
I was gonna say.
we will send you the dates for your information, and if you would like to
There you go.
attend. Sorry.
Now, Are you requesting for us to let you know if we're coming?
What we'll do is, in the weekly update, I'll just share that the meeting is coming up. If you'd like to attend, you're welcome to attend. You don't necessarily have to let us know, but if you'd like to, we'll tell you the date, the time, and the location.
Awesome.
But again, it's not an official assignment. It's anybody that would like to come based on the topics. Thank you for the reminder.
You look like you had a question?
Yeah.
I was thinking there was a FAC this past Thursday, or am I wrong on my dates?
I think Dr. Fuchs was going to provide that update, I think, when I was done here, so.
There you go, you're on.
Can
I
you
was gonna
say
try
that
and
again?
FAC.
I was-
FAC?
Perfect, yep, I was
FAC.
taking
Yep.
notes.
Yep,
I was
perfect.
gonna try and make and got sidetracked this past
Nope.
Thursday, but.
That's okay.
It was a good segue.
This past Thursday, the FAC met. We spent some time reworking our charter. Basically, we've used the previous charter and modified it such that the board is no longer the driving force of that charter, but rather that it's administratively driven. And so we spent some time talking about meeting structure and calendar and topics, and basically just working our way through that charter and everything that's in it. A lot of the structure of it stays the same. We still plan to create agendas, take minutes, talk about financial topics, specifically ones where the board might want some input, such as school fees, bond refunding, even though we don't have any opportunities for a while, I think 2025, but things like that where you may ask me, well, what might the FAC say? We did decide to meet every other month, so I'm glad that we're going to get the revised calendar out to you, so that way none of you show up when we're not there by accident, so that'll be good. Our next meeting is December 5th, and we did briefly discuss the strategic spending that the board discussed at the last meeting, and they would be in support or supportive of the board on one-time expenditures and spending down over a period of 3 to 5 years. Many of the FAC members have been around now for a while in the sense that they've seen the state go like this, and so they're by nature more conservative than maybe we need or want to be, depending on where the board lands with that. So, also, I wanted to report, which I haven't usually done on a regular basis, but I think based on some of our conversations that it's important. The Health Insurance Committee meeting, we also met on Thursday because we meet monthly, and I want to give you just some overviews of things that we discussed. Open enrollment is coming up October 15th, which it just started, through November 1st. So the members of the Health Insurance Committee, they will go back and, well, first of all, we send out information to everybody on open enrollment. But open enrollment is the one time during the year where employees can change their health insurance options. For example, maybe they're a single coverage and they want to add family members, or vice versa. You can do that various times of the year if you have a qualifying event, but open enrollment is for when you don't have a qualifying event and you would just simply like to make a change. We talked about the flexible spending accounts that the board provides, and the employee participates in. They take money out of their paychecks and they put that money into a flexible spending account for either medical or child care. And following all governmental rules, you have one calendar year in which to put the money in and then spend the money. And that money then is it's pre-tax. I wanted to say tax-free, but it's not tax-free, it's pre-taxed. And so that's good. We talk about wellness because of our self-insured plan, claims make up a significant portion of our costs. So the fewer claims that we have, when I say significant portion, it's about 86%. So the healthier or the more healthy our staff is, the less claims they have, the less costs we all have. And so it's a part of the insurance committee that we talk about wellness. One of the things that we're tossing around and exploring is to create a January incentive on work-life balance. and see if we can do something with that, because that's an area that's been identified as having a high need. And so those are some of the topics that we discussed. At the meeting, our Blue Cross Blue Shield representative was in attendance. And it was good for all of our insurance committee members to put a name to a face for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Gail was there. Gail, did I?
You're doing a good job here, girl.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought I would try to report to the board what the Health Insurance Committee works on each month, so.
And it also seems that the members that are part of this committee, they know each other, okay? They're from different schools and everything else, and they do get along very well together. They work together. They really do. They have some tough questions for some of the Blue Cross Blue Shield people. Yes.
Yeah.
Question. The wellness program, is that an incentive for them to do things that will take $5 off their bill type of thing, or it's just more of a, you can do this to keep yourself well?
Right now, it's more with prizes than it is financial discounts.
Right.
We've explored financial discounts, but we have to be very careful that we're not discriminating. And so we haven't done that yet, that piece of it. All we've done is provided small gift cards to Jamba Juice and just things like that, gift cards. More, our program already with Blue Cross Blue Shield has gym memberships where you can get discounts and things like that. That already comes with Blue Cross Blue Shield, because they want you to be healthy too. But for our programs, we don't do them very often, but when we do, we just do small prizes.
All right.
Kaneland gear, that's another thing that we give away. Water bottles, T-shirts.
Sure.
Yep,
All right. Thank you.
you bet.
Anything else? No? So any topics for future agendas?
I have two. Well, I guess they're not necessarily topics, so we were told it'd come up later in the fall, and it's fall, so I just wanted to put a little bug in the ear of the administration that we're going to talk about French class at some point this fall, and we were also going to talk about bidding the insurance broker at some point in the fall. I just want to make sure we don't miss those two.
Can I ask for clarification on French?
My stance that we should get rid of it and teach something else.
But it was bigger too of world languages, not just French, right? Like why any other language? And so I think it was
It was, yeah,
Okay.
you were going to do more
Yep.
comprehensive than that. I just.
okay. I appreciate the directness, so I've got it. Thank you.
I'd like to get a little clarification. I'm wondering if we have consensus from the whole board to bid the brokerage services of the health insurance, and if before we do that, if we might have an opportunity for our current broker, who's been with the district and for quite some time, to come and at least inform the board of what services he provides, or his company provides.
But we don't do that for any other contractor. Or we don't have them come before the board and explain what they, please give me an example because I don't remember that.
You're right, but this is a little bit unique in that it's a lot of work to change broker after broker after broker and company after company after company. And I don't have the staff to have lots of changes. I'm not saying that we can't and that we won't. I'm just saying we just need to be very careful. Additionally, it's not the cost of the broker right now that drives our health insurance costs. Additionally, we've had very good renewal rates, and so I'm not sure what the purpose is. If something isn't broken, what are we fixing? And so I need to better understand what our goal is.
I guess I disagree with several of those things. Your brokers charge you fees to sell you the insurance. So the broker's making money, and we have no idea how much money they are because we haven't gotten a competitive bid from other brokers in a long time. Just because we've used someone for a long time doesn't mean that they're necessarily the best fit. And I'm not by any means suggesting we bounce from company to company to company. but I think it's prudent that we at least investigate it to make sure we're wisely spending the district's money.
I also think, I agree with those comments. I also think that we've expressed periodically a frustration with when the board has input into what you guys look at. You know, when exactly do you look into cost-saving efforts that we would like to see? You know, it's great, the wellness stuff, and it all seems to be more to just continually expand the offerings, when we would like to also see some fiscal cutbacks.
Yeah, and I would say that our benefits have not changed since approximately 2000, and it would have been maybe 11 or 12. At that time, the trust fund had excess money, and we did increase the vision coverage, but that was the last time we've ever changed the benefits, except for we've increased the stop loss amount, because that comes once a year, and we kind of have to do that in order to have savings. So that comes in May typically with the renewal, and what we talked about also is making sure that that comes to the board in multiple meetings and not just one meeting where you have to make a decision.
Because traditionally it was a April report, and then the next meeting would go on to consent. But I think what we had talked about was, like you just said, bringing it back multiple times to have conversations leading up to it, so that the board didn't feel like it was just one meeting in which to discuss it.
Yeah,
And I just
but
wanna make-
so I was just gonna finish and say, so Teresa, we haven't just expanded. There haven't been any benefit changes
Right.
in a long time.
And I would say, so when I'm saying expand, I didn't necessarily mean financially, I meant expanding programmatically, or like you're talking about the wellness stuff, and you're gonna talk about, you know, home life balance or work-life balance and all that stuff. That's great, but we don't hear that you're talking about how to save the district money. And I would say that, yes, you haven't changed benefits either way.
And so we did explore lots of savings opportunities in the past. There are only so many different choices. I can start that cycle again, and we can explore HMOs, HSAs, high deductible plans.
So, and I don't want you to have to spin your wheels, because the makeup of your committee is such that no one is ever going to approve any of those things that you look into.
So with that being said, is that something you want the broker to come to the board with?
And that's, okay, so,
Because
these are
that,
maybe two different things.
Yeah, I think we are, because
Yes.
my point was that exact same product that we're getting now may be cheaper from
Yes.
store B. And Teresa's on to some other
And
points
I'm
that,
saying I think the board needs to have more input into a committee that is made up exclusively, except for Gail, of people who benefit from the product.
and
Yeah.
I don't disagree, I just don't know how much flexibility we have, because so much of that's contractual.
Right.
Now,
Right.
But it's,
so that's where I need some help. If we want change, I need direction from the board. If it's the broker that you want to take a look at, that's fine. Please understand that when you're talking about $7 million, the broker's probably only getting 75,000 of it.
Yeah.
So,
I think you're right.
okay.
Should we start off by
Yeah.
information or in action?
Oh, well, I thought we had covered this 6 months ago, and it was on the agenda that it was gonna be up there for bid. I really thought that's where we landed, so I'm a little confused that we're having this conversation now. I just assumed it was coming.
But I don't recall either way, so
Okay.
I can't.
I remember it being brought up.
I know.
Yes, I remember
can't
being brought
the
up in the
whole
request to
resolution.
have more information
So,
brought back. I
yeah.
don't remember a bid for sure, but I remember additional meetings where more information was going to be brought for more discussion.
And that's fine, then, if
Yeah.
that's where we're,
Right.
that, it's very clear what my end goal is here, or
Yeah.
what my point is, so if there needs to be a conversation between here and there, fine. I just didn't want it to get lost in the.
I think it's a good time to have this conversation in terms of timing, because it gives us plenty of time to prepare. Because that's the other thing, if we're gonna change brokers, we need to get that done before our renewal.
Is it possible to do some research before we say bid it again? Like, so where you would say, well, I don't know if you can talk to other people and they tell you the percentage that their broker gets.
It's usually hidden in the details and you don't ever know.
Yeah, because it's between the companies and the broker.
I think at the end of the day, do your subject matters, or can we go after savings, right?
Yeah, basically, if we haven't checked, if we've used the same company for many a year,
As long as I can remember.
and
I mean,
it's time to just take the temperature, that's all.
understood.
Does anyone else want to weigh in on that topic, or what they're?
And to be clear, Gail, you're looking at me and made me like, you're not, I'm not suggesting we change anything other
No, I
than-
understand, no, I totally understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I just know that being there and listening to the people that are there and listening to, you know, the broker who's always at our meetings and stuff like that, a lot of these questions come up within the meeting itself.
Okay.
From the employees that are there, because they're getting questions asked from their, you know, the people that they work with. So there's people there from every school, you know, all the grade schools, and, you know, there's a representative. So if they've got questions, they're bringing them to this group.
Okay.
So you've got the broker, you've also got Blue Cross Blue Shield. So, I mean, a lot of the stuff gets asked.
So what becomes of it, I guess, the next question then?
Well, you know, the questions they're asked, and then they come back with the answers. If they don't have the answers, they come back with them.
So are you saying that people on the committee ask the broker, what's your percentage take of?
I don't know if they've ever asked that.
I don't think
That's
so.
I don't
the
think
difference
so.
in the type of questions.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
don't think we
they're
can-
obviously more concerned
don't
about
think the
what
committee
it's
isn't
costing
answering
them
questions
and
from
what
employees.
the coverage contains, you know, just what the
I-
coverage is.
By any, I am not talking about what the coverage contains or what benefits you get. I'm talking about
What it
Bill
costs.
Blue Cross
I
and
know.
HUB charges us to provide the services of giving us home. That's it.
The Blue Cross fees, we know, because
Okay.
they're included every
Yeah.
year, and I share them with you,
Okay.
in the totals. Let me think about that. You know what, you may not see that worksheet, you see the total totals of how much it costs and the percentages.
And,
Um,
go ahead.
but I agree with you, what you're talking about, and what Teresa talking about, I believe are two different
They are.
things.
They are.
Yeah, we've said that.
Because
They are.
I don't have good direction on, I understand what you're looking for, Ryan. I have a clear understanding.
Okay.
Teresa, I don't know how we can do what you're asking, so I'd like to hear more in terms of who do you want, how many, what process? Because
So we talked about this exhaustively before. We've talked about, I mean, I'm just bringing it up again. We talked about the board having input into that committee, because the committee is all internal people who benefit from using the health insurance.
So do we want more board members at the meetings? Is that it?
Either that, we talked about that, we talked about having a time and a deadline that's in time for you guys to look into it before the renewal, where the board members say, we want you to look into higher deductibles. And I know
Those are
you've done it once
contractual.
before, you've raised the deductibles, but, you know, we want you to look at higher deductibles. We want you to look at the really high deductible plans, you know, maybe some people want that.
Right.
Expanding the choices, because maybe there are some, you know, young
Right,
people that, you know,
yep.
or health savings accounts. We've talked about this before. When does the board get to say, look at these things? Because historically, the people on the committee do not ask to see those things, because they don't want to say, hey, let's talk to the guy about how to raise our prices,
Yeah.
you know, or diminish our benefits.
So let's,
And
Well, on the flip-
unfortunately, the board
Yeah.
has to look at those things.
And on the flip side, you may have done it, but we don't hear about it.
right,
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's.
And sometimes when you've brought up that, well, we looked at it, but we all dismissed it. It's like, well, of course, because there isn't anybody there that isn't on the insurance. You know, of course, nobody in the room wants to
So
raise their deductibles.
Should we do a Friday update of a summary of what's bargained for and what's set for the next 5 years? And then the board can give direction on what else is out there to be discussed? Because I think some,
we know, I mean, or we can
because
look it
deductibles
up.
are in there, like we can't talk about
Right.
those, I think, because they're now.
Certain things are contractual.
Yeah, they're set.
I was saying, there's contractual stuff.
And the benefits, the
I thought the
standard,
contractual part was just,
but
that the benefits can't be less than.
I think deductibles are numerically set.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned stop-loss insurance, which I think I understand, but I'm guessing we all don't, and I know that we pay for it, so maybe that's an example of, we could buy different levels of policies, right? At different levels of exposure and.
And I do like your idea of having the broker come and talk to the board about the possibilities
Services that they provide, yeah.
and where there are money-saving, opportunities.
Right, what are trends in insurance? Where are we going? What can we do?
Is it a
And that could be before or after
Well,
Ryan's
I-
idea of like putting it out
Yeah.
to bid and getting it.
I buy liability insurance for my business, and some years liability insurance is cheap, and other years it's not. So there's a variable of, or there's your, what's that stupid multiplier for, injury rates?
workers' comp.
Yeah, depending on your injury rate, it goes up and down.
So, let's make sure the board understands, those are two different coverages.
Right.
For health insurance, we have a broker. For property casualty liability and workers' comp, we belong to a cooperative with almost 200 other school districts.
All in
So,
Illinois, I'd assume?
pardon?
All in Illinois, I'd assume?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And I actually sit on that board of directors for the cooperative. And so if you want to know more about that coverage, you just need to ask. But if we want out of the cooperative and want to do something different, then we have to give a certain period of notice and things like that. But the cooperative, each season, the brokers, the administrators for the cooperative go out and pool all of our insurance and bid each line of coverage and receive multiple bids on our behalf for each line of coverage every year.
Okay.
So as a part of that school district cooperative, that's what's happening for property casualty liability and workers' comp.
Okay.
So it's truly the health insurance where it's individual to us because we're self-insured. And that's where the majority of the costs associated with that are claims, actual claims. The administrative fees and costs that they've worked really hard to control are only about 15%.
Of 7 million? That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, but it goes to a variety of places. That includes all of your life insurance, your flex spending, your health insurance, your RX, the prescriptions. It covers quite a bit.
I know we're talking about a big ball of wax.
Yep. And so maybe that's a place to start, is for the board to know more about what is consistent, or what is in our plan. Before we, I
don't mean to cut you off.
That's fine.
I made my point as far as, did we ever get board consensus on that, or did we?
I think both topics, it's a topic for future agenda, so I think we have an idea of what both of the topics, Ryan's and Teresa's, we should get consensus on them, so then that way we know that the rest of the board, that the group wants to hear everything and we can bring that.
My
So-
thumbs are up, both of them.
Both of them.
So that's good. I
Yep.
think, Ryan, I don't know if we can start with information or action. I do want to make sure it is fast enough that you would have a chance to bid in our process. You know what I'm saying? I just don't want that to get lost, like, oh, wait, we missed a year. So if the
If there's a
information.
a pre-step that we
Yeah,
can do.
yeah, as long as it can meet whatever timeline needs to be met, I
And I don't
appreciate that.
honestly know what that timeline
Me,
is.
me
That's
either,
why
but
I brought it
as
up
long
tonight.
as, yeah.
We'll let you know.
The only thing with Teresa is it is the what's contractual and what's
What's
not,
not.
but it could be a discussion point and
Maybe we can extract those things that are or not.
have more
And
conversation.
deal with
I
those,
I definitely think it's
Look into if there, I mean, maybe the answer is, anything that's not contractual, isn't a big dollar item, and so it's
Yeah.
not worth doing. But
And even stuff that is contractual, I think we just don't want to wait till we get there. I know it's a long time out at this point, or I don't even if I said that right, the stuff that is contractual.
Right.
To learn about the trends and to start thinking about, do we want to offer different plans at some point? And
Or if Sycamore self-insures, do we want to combine our pools to reduce our?
yeah, I mean, I do think just discussions on insurance isn't a bad thing. I think it is something significant to the budget, to
and I
just be
think there are
thinking in that
things
way.
that, I certainly don't know a whole lot about insurance, so I'm sure there
Yeah.
are things that, that are possible that
That we don't even.
we wouldn't even think
I'm with
of.
you there, yeah. Okay.
And I also don't want, one of the statements that you made, I know, I heard you, and I know the rest of us heard us, but I don't think we talked about it, was the potentials of, if we were to change those things you and your staff would have to go through. And since haven't had a change in a long time, I don't know that we even have that noted, which I guess is a hint, and it might be an opportunity to go through, is that we would have to deal through this, that type of thing. And that's frankly something I personally would like to hear, and how brutal it's gonna be for you.
Yeah, I mean, if
Yeah.
we can save $30,000 by changing to a broker, but she's got to hire another staff member to process it.
Yeah.
Right.
Then we're done.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to acknowledge.
Yeah,
Okay.
to know
I
that too.
appreciate that,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other topics, future agendas?
Okay, I have, it's a lightweight one, really it is. So I have noticed that other school districts that have gone with a solar plan have been putting out a lot of PR.
Yes.
I would like
I saw
to
that
see
too.
PR, is partly just because it's a great thing, it's a money saver, it's, great for the environment. And it's good to see our students seeing us combat climate change, things like that. But there are also gonna be changes happening at the schools that parents need to be aware of.
Yep.
And when they start seeing it, especially at the high school, when it's kind of close in proximity to the building. I mean, the others are on top of the building, so that's close proximity too. But anyway, I would just like us to get, and I know we don't have a PR person, but I would like to see, I'd like to see it in the newspapers and in the, because I don't think they wrote about it.
No, I think somebody was here that night, but they wrote about other things. I think there's two parts to that. There's the PR piece, number one, and then number two, a parent communication piece, just so that they understand what it is and what it is not. Because our board was fortunate to get to hear a lot about it. So some of it can be to our parents, some of that communication piece, and also maybe highlighting some of the board meeting dates and times, so that way they can go back and watch some of it too. So I think there's a
Yeah.
dual communication piece that I'm hearing.
Yeah, because I was listening to the radio and they came on with some other school district and they were doing like half of what we were doing and it was like this big flowery, oh.
Yeah, I read it in the paper and
I was like yelling at the radio.
We're doing more than
I was like-
that. We're doing more than that.
I was like, we're doing more than that.
I saw it in the
That's
paper, and
nothing.
Yep,
I meant
got
to
it.
send Todd the article
Yeah.
suggesting
Yep.
that as well.
I saw Huntley doing it just about the same time we
I
approved
think it
ours
was
also.
Huntley that
Yeah.
I-
They're a
Yeah.
little bit ahead of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they're starting to break ground. We're not even close to
Right.
breaking ground at this point, so.
But we had to do something by the first of the year.
Yeah,
End
to
of the
get
year.
the credits.
To get the-
Yeah,
Or they get the credit.
Right.
And we've been.
and we did that with the board action.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So is there any consensus you need from that, or and we're all good?
I think the rest of the board would,
Yes.
okay
We're
okay
all
with that, yes.
anything- Okay.
No, do not communicate that.
So anything else? No. Public comments? No. All right, and there,
We'll move to adjourn.
exactly. Brian moves to adjourn, second?
I'll second it.
And a roll call?
Do we need, we don't need a roll call.
No,
Okay,
group.
probably not. All those in favor?
Group vote.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I've been looking at you for that. All right, meeting's adjourned.
8:24.
Just cause, right?
Cool.
He does that.
Thank you.
Thank you.